So there's this scam out there that I actually fell for, and it has cost people their marriages, it's cost people their businesses, it's cost people financially, emotionally, mentally. It's brutal. And it took me a while to work up the nerve to talk about this, but I wanted to address in this video so you don't fall for it as well. Before we get into what it is, I wanted to kind of share with you the concept behind why this scam is so costly. So imagine if I wanted to pump these weights for, I know, look at me go, 15s, for the next 12 hours. I don't think I could do it, first of all, but second of all, it's just stupid because it would make me extremely sore. I'd probably get injured, and then it would mean that I wouldn't be properly able to do my work. I wouldn't properly be able to really function in my life, and I would be exhausted. So it would cost me a couple of days of mental and physical optimal strength. So that's the concept of diminishing or negative returns, which I want to show you. This is not a concept I created, but I did make a special doodle for you. So let me show you what it looks like so I can further explain this. This is what it looks like. So you have your input down here, which is your investment of time, money, resources, energy. Then you have your output, which is the quality of what you're getting out, the work that you're doing, etc. So this right here with the happy face is your most productive. It means that you're getting an equal amount of input and output. So you're putting in your time, energy, resources, etc. And then you're getting really quality work out of it as well that you're proud of. This is where we start to hit the danger zone. This is where we get minimal or diminishing returns. Meaning that basically you hit this point and you're putting in the same amount of time, energy, investment, etc., but your work starts to slide. It starts to not really yield any results at all, and you're not happy about it. Then we reach the real tipping danger point, which is the negative returns, obviously with the sad face. So you put in time, energy, resources, you're hustling, but the quality of your work goes down significantly. You make mistakes, you get lazy, you are doing things just because you feel like you have to, but they're not actually bringing you any kind of return because you're just needing to stay busy, and you think if you put in more time, effort, and energy, you're gonna get an amazing output, but you've passed that. That was down here. This is when it's time to stop. Really right here, this is when it's time to stop. This is definitely when it's time to stop. Take a breather and then come back so you can enter this positive zone again. And you might be able to relate to this because I'm sure you've had those days. I just had one, which is why I'm making this video, where I was exhausted. I was mentally exhausted, but I still had things that I had on my to-do list that I needed to get done and that I wanted to do in order to achieve my goals. It takes hard work to be an entrepreneur, to achieve your career goals, to do really anything that you want in life. However, if you don't understand hard work and motivation in moderation, it can lead to a very vicious cycle, and it creates mental fatigue. So just like if your muscles were constantly working, they basically would end up just breaking and burning out. Your mind works the same way, and mental fatigue is defined as basically your cognitive function doesn't turn off. Your wheels are constantly spinning, you're constantly in motion, you're constantly thinking about your next thing, and it leads to exhaustion and sometimes burnout. And then when you get in that state, the worst thing is that when you feel exhausted, there is guilt that's associated with that because of this hustle culture that's been created in this scam that I'm going to show you in a second to make you feel like you constantly have to be busy. So it creates a cycle of you get exhausted and then you need to find motivation. You usually look externally for that motivation. You get a small hit of dopamine and motivation. And did you know dopamine is also found in cocaine? Yes, it's basically a drug. And you get that hit of dopamine, you have momentary motivation, but your brain is still exhausted. So you can't really do the things properly that you need to actually create the return that you're looking for to achieve your goals. Enter the hustle scam. The hustle scam looks like this. You're unmotivated and unfocused and unproductive, and maybe you're exhausted. So you look for external motivation. Maybe it's on social media, YouTube, wherever. That gives you momentary motivation and a dopamine hit, so you feel really good and excited, and then you fall right back into exhaustion and realize that even though you're motivated for that moment, you don't even really know what you're motivated for. So then that leads you to need to get another hit of dopamine and enter the cycle all over again. I fell victim to this and ended up in the hospital. I know what it's like to hit that mental fatigue point, and honestly, most of it came from my own ego. I didn't want to ask for help because I didn't want to appear weak. I didn't want to take a rest day because that's not what busy, successful entrepreneurs do. And here's the reality, newsflash. There is literally no evidence, none whatsoever, that hustling makes you more successful or happier. Hustling and the concept of it is constantly being busy. If you're constantly being busy, what are you actually working on or towards? I can tell you that the most successful people in the world, and a lot of the people that are proclaiming that hustle culture is a great thing, are people who aren't doing everything. They have teams behind them. They have support staff. They have maids and cooks and cleaners and all of these things. And truthfully, if hustle and working 24/7 was the thing that made everyone successful, I know a hell of a lot of people who are making less than minimum wage, barely able to pay rent, who should be millionaires. Hustle is a privilege, it's a status symbol, and it's a whole lot of bullshit. It doesn't respect your boundaries, and it doesn't respect your limits. And ultimately, it keeps you mediocre. And here's the really crazy part about this. Did you know the self-help industry is expected to be a $13 billion a year industry by 2022? It is on the rise. And I love self-help. I've read all the books. I listen to all the podcasts. But that can also be a very toxic thing when it's not done in moderation. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are spewing motivation are in their own cycle. They're trapped in their own cycle, and I call it the validation scam, which really looks like this. They're insecure or have a lack of self-worth, so they're in need of external validation. They then post something online, and then they get a bunch of likes, comments, followers. That gives them an instant dopamine hit and makes them feel really good about themselves. And then that brings you right back to needing another one of those hits and ultimately still not feeling great about yourself. So it just creates this constant cycle of having to constantly push out content and be in front of people and get the likes, the comments, and the followers. And don't get me wrong, I love a good motivational video or quote or graphic or meme or whatever it is. I love that stuff. I create that stuff. But just like drugs, it can be dangerous. And motivation needs to be consumed in moderation. Otherwise, you're constantly in this shame cycle or in the hustle scam of feeling bad about yourself for not being constantly busy and working towards your goals. And then you seek external validation or motivation and to get that dopamine hit, and then that gives you a momentary fix and you're right back in the cycle. And instead of working towards your own goals and working towards what you ultimately want to achieve, you're just waiting for somebody to show you the way. And as I've said in many videos before, nobody's gonna show you the way. You have to listen to yourself and find time to tune in order to figure out what you're really meant to do. And you can't tune in if you're constantly busy. So how do you create your own motivation? Be a cautious consumer. There is nothing wrong with following people who motivate you towards your specific goals. But if you don't know what you want to do and you're just constantly feeling the need to be motivated by people online, then you're going to ultimately usually get very mediocre results. Mass motivation and general images and memes like this aren't really giving you much to work with or knowing what you need to work towards. The most helpful kind of self-help or motivation creates transformation and isn't just information being spewed at you. We don't need more information. We need transformation to actually become the best version of ourselves or the most successful, whatever that definition is for you, for yourself. So who are those people that you need to seek out and follow that are actually living the kind of life that you want to live? Create more than you consume. Be sure that if you're constantly in that scroll hole on Instagram, you're not just taking in information and exhausting your mind, but you're actually creating content that's helpful and impactful and working towards ultimately what you want to create for yourself and not just feeding the beast of somebody else getting more likes and followers and comments. Understand that rest is not for the weak. Smart people rest. Period. Because, like I said, if you're constantly working your muscle, you're going to burn them out, and your body and your brain work the same way. So give yourself what it needs, give your body what it needs. We're trying to keep up with technology and computers. We're not computers and we're not robots. We're not meant to be on all the time. Even an iPhone has to be shut down if it gets too hot, if it overheats. So don't let yourself get to that place. Give yourself what you need in order to be a healthy, happy, functioning human being and not just this constant busybody. Sit down and write out what you want to accomplish in the next 12 months. Get clear on it. Because when you're constantly consuming, content and you're on social media, it's really easy to get confused. And it's really easy to lose sight of your own goals and what you actually want. But when you know what you want, you seek out the things you need. So make sure that you know where you're going and what it is that you personally want to achieve and what your definition of success is. That is what's most important. And then you can seek out the people and the resources, books, courses, etc. that are going to help you get there. Create micro goals for yourself. Crushing your goals and crushing your dreams and all these things, that's a big, broad goal. What the hell does that even mean? You need to work towards what you, as a human being and as an individual, what's important to you. So create these micro goals that you can celebrate, because every time you celebrate a little goal like that, it creates a dopamine hit, and that creates momentum for you moving forward. And it gets you out of the cycle of needing to consume anybody else's content to motivate you, and it creates motivation for yourself. Celebrate your wins, even if they're little tiny wins. Don't compare your day 1 to somebody else's day 100. If you have a little tiny win, if you put up a video on YouTube, if you make your first post on Instagram stories, if you are studying a course and you finish the first module, whatever it is, celebrate it. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell people, give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself a little hug, celebrate it, because you know what that does? It creates momentum and it creates dopamine inside of you as well that you're creating for yourself. And again, you're not getting it from anybody else. Unfollow anyone who makes you feel guilty or ashamed for not being constantly busy. Really be cautious of how the things you see in your newsfeed on any platform make you feel. If they make you feel crappy about yourself, it's keeping you in that scam, that hustle cycle. Celebrate other people. Say good job. Tell someone you're proud of them. Stop and look around you and see what the people around you are building and creating. And that creates this amazing support system that everybody really does need. And if you become this person who works all the time and you lose track of the things that actually matter, you're ultimately gonna be left with no support system. And so that's not really a way to live your life. Visualize the things that you want to accomplish and write them down. This is actually proven to release dopamine, which makes you feel good and happy and proud of yourself. And so if you visualize and write your goals down and then actually feel what it's going to feel like to achieve them, it's going to create forward momentum internally. And then the basics: eat the right foods that make you feel good and make you feel healthy. And there's things like probiotics and yogurt and sauerkraut, which actually lead to releasing dopamine within your system to give you that feeling of confidence and pride and joy and all of these things that will help you achieve your goals. Sleep. Make sure you're actually getting the rest that you need. And be conscious of how much rest you need on a nightly basis and commit to getting that. And move. Move for me, it's 30 minutes every day. I make sure that I'm either going for a walk, I'm getting on my bike, I'm lifting weights, doing something that moves my body, because I do believe that your most creative juices and your best ideas, for me at least, come out when my body is in motion. If I'm just staying stationary and just sitting in my computer, I get blocked and I get drained. Here's the cold hard truth. I know a lot of people who have built incredibly successful businesses and lives. And there's a certain point, tipping point, that everyone hits, and I went through it myself, where you're hustling. And yes, hustle is a part of building anything that you want in this life. But again, it has to be done in moderation. There's this tipping point that everybody hits where they hit a wall. Not everybody, but majority of people I know who have built these massively successful companies, myself included. You hit a wall because you've been working, then you breathe and you get to look up and you realize that you've missed out on a lot and that you've sacrificed your health, your relationships, and all these other things for an external goal. It's amazing to build a business that has impact, and it's amazing to create financial freedom for yourself. But if you're missing out on everything else, you're missing the point. So I'm speaking from experience and as a warning from myself, because I've been through it, to you. The most successful people I know, and for me in the last year, 2 years, I have focused on not just hustling at work. I hustle in my relationships. I hustle when it comes to rest. I hustle when it comes to my self-care. I now understand that hustle and dedication and focus has to be applied to your whole life, not just one fragment of it. Because you don't want to be the person at the party when somebody says, "How are you?" You're like, "I'm just so busy." Work is so busy. Those people are boring. And you're like, "Do you have nothing else to talk about outside of work? Because I don't really care about your work." You know? And I was that person. I will admit it. I was that boring person at the party for a while. So it's about building a whole life and working hard at all aspects of your life so you can live a long time. Because if you fall into this hustle scam, I'm telling you, it can kill you. It can kill a lot of the good things in your life. Now in the next video, also, by the way, if this resonated with you at all, please hit that like button and please be sure to subscribe and share this with somebody who needs to hear it, because I think there's a lot of people who probably do. I know I did. And next video, I'm going to share with you how to be insanely productive while doing a hell of a lot less. I'll see you in the next one.